Imagine getting hauled off to jail for the color of your grass. What would you do if your own HOA told you, straight-faced, fix your lawn in 30 days or you're going behind bars? Sounds unreal. Right. Well, it happened. And it all started with a mailbox that grew a little mildew and a patch of yard that didn't look like a golf course. My name's Irene. I bought this little peach-colored ranch at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac because it felt like a promise: safer streets, better schools, a place my kids could ride their bikes without me checking over my shoulder every 5 minutes. The HOA brochure called it Riverview Creekside, though you can't actually see a river unless you lean over the second floor of Karen's place and squint past the retention pond. But, you know, it had hope. That's all I wanted. Hope, and a yard where my 15-year-old daughter could practice cheer jumps on a Saturday morning. That spring, the county announced watering restrictions once a week. Early morning. No exceptions, 'cause there'd been a long dry spell. The huge oak in my front yard sucked up moisture like a thirsty elephant. Half my lawn stayed shaded and damp, while the other half turned every shade of brown you can imagine: toasted wheat, café au lait, even that grayish beige that makes you want to say, "Sorry, is that dirt or grass?" I wasn't the only one. You walk the block, and there's lawns that look, kinda patchy. Lawns that look stiff like crunchy cereal. And one yard down the street, with more bald spots than my Uncle Roy at Christmas. Then came the first letter. Dear homeowner, your property is not in compliance with the community standards. Please correct the following: lawn discoloration and general appearance. Please correct within 14 days. 14 days. With one watering day a week. Sure. I stood in my driveway that evening, holding the paper and thinking, maybe they just haven't looked around. The sun went down slow and amber, washing the street in this nice honey light. And you could still see where the grass had given up near the oak's roots. I told myself, we'll figure it out. I threw out some shade-tolerant seed, hand-raked, watered on my day, and hope. 2 weeks later, another letter. Dirty mailbox mildew from the same shady tree. I grabbed a sponge and wiped it clean in 5 minutes. While I was out there, I noticed Karen, the HOA board's secretary, power walking past in neon sneakers. She had that clipboard tucked under her arm like it was the Constitution. Afternoon, I said. She smiled, without really smiling. Afternoon. Quick note, driveway cargo vans aren't permitted overnight. Just remindin'. I looked over my shoulder at my brother-in-law's white work van. He'd been helping me repair a dent in my garage door, the one you can't even see unless you stand just so at the curb and squint. It's leaving tonight, I told her. She nodded, but her pen already scratched onto the clipboard. I mean, it's like the pen had a mind of its own. I wanted to let it go. I really did. But then, the third letter arrived. This one escalated. Final notice before legal action. It listed lawn discoloration, mailbox cleanliness. Again though, I'd scrubbed that thing so bright I could see my face in it, and garage door dent visible from street view. Visible, unless you had eagle vision and a ladder. You couldn't see it through the oak's branches. I called the property management company. Listen, I said. The county's got water restrictions. I can't make grass grow overnight. We understand, the lady chirped, like a robot reading a script. But our standards require lawns be maintained to a uniform, healthy appearance. What does uniform mean in a drought? She paused. Uniform means consistent with the community look. So, what fake turf? I asked. Half joking. We do not dictate materials, she said. We dictate results. The phrase lodged in my brain, We dictate results, not reality, not weather, not the giant oak, older than the neighborhood itself. Results. A week later, a packet landed on my porch like a small brick. A lawsuit filed by the HOA in county court. Legal words stacked on legal words. I sat at the kitchen table, reading the paragraphs out loud to my sister-in-law. Denise, who's a paralegal, they want a court order to force compliance. I said, or fines, or other remedies. Denise rubbed her temples. Irene, I can help you draft something, but you gotta show up to the hearing. Judges hate when people don't show up. I showed up. The courtroom felt cold and a little too bright. The HOA's attorney had glossy shoes and a voice that carried. He showed photos of my yard in all its patchy glory, snapped right at high noon when the grass looks the worst. He said words like aesthetics and property values and consistent enforcement. I stood there in my best jacket, clutching my notes with sweaty fingers, feeling small and very poor, very tired. The judge turned to me. Mrs. Green, can you bring the property into compliance within 30 days? I swallowed. Yes, Your Honor. I'll do everything I can. I did say, 'cause I'm honest, we have water restrictions. But I'll seed and treat, and, do my best. 30 days, he said. If you fail to comply, you may face sanctions, including contempt. Contempt. The word clanged like a kettlebell in an empty gym. I spent the next month working that yard like it was a second job. I dethatched. I aerated with a screwdriver because renting a machine cost more than my budget allowed that week. I used shade blend seed. I watered on my allowed day at dawn and again with a watering can for the shrubs. I trimmed back the oak where I could. I repainted the mailbox post white as a wedding dress. My brother-in-law fixed the garage door dent with a suction puller and a little paint. By week 3, the lawn looked okay, not a perfect magazine cover, but not a crime scene either. When the 30 days were up, I took pictures. I printed them at the pharmacy. I labeled them front yard east, front yard west, mailbox, garage door, like a little evidence file. I even drafted a letter saying, I've substantially complied. I mailed it to the management company certified. I thought, silly me, that would be the end. It wasn't. Another letter came. Not from the management company this time, but from the court. Only this is the part that gets thorny. I didn't receive it. Whether it got lost in the zigzag of postal routing or delivered to the wrong box, I can't say. What I know is the court date came and went, and I wasn't there. The judge, the same one from before, I can't be 100%, signed a paper that said contempt of court. And a warrant went into the system with my name on it, like a stain you can't wash out. I had no clue. On a Wednesday evening, I picked up my 15-year-old from cheer practice. We were laughing about her friend missing a back handspring when the blue lights blinked in my rear view. I pulled over. The deputy walked up slow. Polite. Professional. Ma'am. License and registration. I gave it over with a nervous smile. You know that little ripple in your stomach when you see a police car? Multiply that by 10. He went back to his cruiser, and I watched his silhouette glow blue-white in the computer screen. Then he returned. Ma'am, I'm gonna need you to step out of the vehicle. I glanced at my daughter. Her eyes wide, like it was Halloween, and not fun. Is something wrong? There's a warrant for your arrest, he said. For what I couldn't even find my voice. Sir, there's gotta be a mistake. He was gentle, Honestly, he let me hug my daughter. Let me call Denise to come pick her up. But then, he had to do his job. He clicked the cuffs. They were cold. And I remember the way the metal felt heavy across my wrist bones. They put me in the back of the car. My daughter stood on the sidewalk with her cheer bag hanging limp, crying like the world was upside down. At booking, they took my mugshot. They took my shoes. They handed me a set of clothes, the color of an old pumpkin, scratchy and too big. No bond, the officer said, reading from a screen. No bond, I repeated. For grass. It's for contempt. He explained. A judge's order. That first night look. I'm not trying to dramatize. I lay on a narrow bunk and stared at a ceiling with water stains shaped like maps. I thought about the oak tree. About the way the leaves shimmered when the wind hit from the east. I thought about my daughter asleep in her room. About the dent in the garage door that no one could see unless they wanted to see it. I thought about Karen's clipboard. I felt small. Humiliated. Like the whole neighborhood could see me through that mugshot square. By the second day, Denise had already filed a petition emergency hearing. Evidence attached. Photos and dates and a letter from me. She was a whirlwind. She called the clerk. She called the judge's assistant. She visited me and said, "You're gonna be okay. 7 days is a long time when you count in seconds. Breakfast at dawn. Lights that buzzed with a flicker. A book with half its pages missing." I kept hearing the judge's voice in my head. 30 days. I kept seeing the attorney's glossy shoes. I kept wondering if any of them had ever mowed a lawn in August. If any of them had ever scraped mildew off a mailbox in the dark at 5 in the morning to beat the heat. On the 6th day, we got a hearing. A different judge this time. Denise stood with a folder, fat as a sandwich. She laid out every photo. Lawn improved. Mailbox clean. Garage door fixed. Cargo van gone. The HOA's attorney argued not fully resodded. Not uniform. Not compliant. Like compliance was a cathedral, and I'd shown up in flip-flops. But the judge looked at the pictures, then at me, then at the calendar. "Release granted," she said. The words felt like rain after a drought. When I walked out, the sun hit my face like a blessing. Denise cried. I cried. My daughter hugged me so hard my back popped. We went home. I stood in the driveway and looked at the oak, like an old friend you'd fought with, but still loved. But it wasn't over. Because that's the thing with some HOAs, they don't stop when they should. They just keep pushing. Karen was out front the very next morning, watering her flower pots with a hose that had more settings than a spaceship. She waved. "Oh, you're back." "Yep," I said, keeping my jaw tight. She glanced at my yard. "Well, we'll need to schedule a re-inspection." "You know, protocol. Schedule away." Her eyes slid toward my mailbox, which was white and spotless. I swear, if she could have found a speck of dust, she would have circled it in red ink and written "violation dust particles." The management company emailed me. "We'll be conducting a follow-up site visit to ensure full compliance, including resodding where grass appears non-uniform. Resodding, not try seed again, or let's work with shade-tolerant options. Rip it all up and put down rolls of perfect green like you're laying carpet in a model home. We dictate results." I wrote back, "I've complied substantially. The county watering rules haven't changed. Full resodding is not a reasonable remedy." I wanted to add, "Also, I'm not a billionaire." But I, didn't. Denise, practical as ever, said, You need to document everything. Photograph. Date. Keep a log. If they push again, we'll show a judge you acted in good faith. So I started a binder. Page 1, my mugshot. Not because I liked it, but because I wasn't going to pretend it didn't happen. Page 2, the letters. Page 3, the photos. Page 4, a list of other lawns on my street that looked, frankly, not much different. I didn't want to call out my neighbors. But fairness is fairness. I wasn't the only one whispering over fences. People were mad. Mrs. Alvarez next door said. They told me my shutters were the wrong shade of blue by one shade. They held up a paint chip like they were NASA. Mr. Hunt across the cul-de-sac said. They fined me for my trash can being visible for 10 minutes after pickup. 10 minutes. And there were the whispers about Karen. She likes to make an example. Someone said. She thinks rules make the community strong. Someone else said. Well, Mr. Hunt muttered. Rules ain't the same as decency. I wish I could say that was the end of the worst of it. But the next HOA meeting, oh boy. It was held in the clubhouse, which smells like lemon cleaner and air-conditioned postcards. Folding chairs in rows. A podium up front. A sign-in sheet on a plastic table guarded by a small bowl of peppermint candies like a consolation prize. Karen sat with the board 3 members. All with binders. The property manager. A young guy in a lavender shirt. Fiddled with a laptop. Community comments went last. Like they always do. Because you have to sit through 50 minutes of landscaping contracts and pool key fob audits before you get a chance to speak about the thing burning a hole in your chest. When the mic finally opened, I walked up. My hands shook just a little. Hi. I'm Irene, on Redwood Court. I want to talk about what happened to me. Heads nodded. People had heard. I kept my voice even. Cause anger if it runs hot. People stop hearing the words. I received violations during a county drought. I cleaned my mailbox. I fixed my garage door. I improved my lawn as much as I could under watering rules. Despite that, legal action was taken. A hearing was held. I was told I had 30 days. I complied in good faith. Then, a court date passed, which I was not notified of, and a warrant was issued. I was arrested in front of my child and held for 7 days without bond on a contempt order. That's what a lack of common sense did. That's what we dictate results did. A murmur rolled through the room like wind through tall grass. Karen leaned forward. We sympathize, she said. But compliance protects property values for everyone. Is jail part of compliance? I asked softly. Silence. You could hear the air conditioner click. A man in the third row, Mr. Hunt, raised a hand. Why do you enforce lawn color like we're in a designer catalog when the county says we can't water more than once a week? Karen hedged. We enforce standards consistently. Consistently wrong is still wrong, Mrs. Alvarez said. The property manager glanced at Karen. Then at me. Maybe we can discuss a pilot for drought-tolerant landscaping. Karen's jaw tightened. We have published guidelines. Guidelines we can change. Someone called from the back. We're the community, not the binder. Another neighbor stood. I'm a landscaper. Shade under mature oaks stays thinner unless you renuke the yard with sod and irrigation. That's biology, not laziness. A chorus of yeah, and that's right, and honestly, some clapping. Karen drummed her fingertips on the binder. We're not here to be a gotcha committee, she said. Which, was news to me. Then don't be, I said. The board president, a quiet guy with salt and pepper hair, finally spoke. I think we need to revisit our drought policies, he said. Careful, like each word was stepping on a stone. And our escalation procedures. Court should be a last resort, not a first response. Thank you, I said, and I meant it. After the meeting, neighbors lined up. People hugged me. One woman whispered. They told me my Halloween wreath violated color harmony. Another said. They made me replant a whole bed because the flowers weren't subdued enough. Subdued. It's a flower bed, not a funeral. Back home, my daughter stood in the driveway, checking TikTok with one hand and tossing a cheer ball with the other. You okay? She asked. I'm okay, I said. But I'm not going to pretend this was normal. She nodded. None of this is normal. Mom. The next morning, I got an email from a local reporter. We've heard about your story. Would you be willing to talk on camera? My stomach did a weird flip. I don't like being on video. But sometimes, you tell your story so other folks don't end up with the same bruises. We met in my yard under the oak, where the light dappled like confetti. The reporter asked questions. And I told the truth. I said, I'm not anti-rules. I'm anti-nonsense. I'm anti-humiliating your neighbors over grass. I'm anti-pretending drought doesn't exist and trees don't cast shade. He asked, What do you want? I looked at the camera. At the little unblinking eye. I want common sense, and I want mercy. And sorry. I know that sounds simple, but that's it. He nodded. Anything else? Yeah, I said. I want Karen to look me in the eyes and say, we're gonna be better. The story spread faster than dandelions in spring. Neighbors shared it. People from other neighborhoods messaged me. They fined me for a basketball hoop. They said my curtains weren't an approved neutral. They measured my grass height with a ruler. You think you're alone until you say something out loud and discover a whole chorus behind you going, us too. Denise helped me file a motion to vacate the contempt on the record, to make sure my name didn't carry that stain forever. She used phrases like due process and lack of notice. She talked me through everything. You're not suing for cash. She reminded me. You're not trying to be famous. You just want the paperwork to match reality. Meanwhile, the board scheduled a policy workshop. It sounded like something with muffins and sticky notes and a fake smile. They invited stakeholders, which I guess includes the people who actually live here, pay dues, and water lawns at ridiculous dawn hours. The workshop started polite. The property manager gave a slideshow, community vision, aesthetic cohesion, enforcement pathways. His bullets were so soothing, they almost put me to sleep. But then, he flipped to a slide labeled, escalation. And the whole room tensed. We send a courtesy letter, he said. Then, a formal notice. Then, a final notice. Then, we refer to legal. Where's the step? Mrs. Alvarez asked. Where you knock on a door and talk like two human beings, he blinked. We prefer documented communications for consistency. And humanity, she pressed. Karen jumped in. We have hundreds of homes. We can't knock on every door. A man in the back raised his hand. You don't knock on any door. That's the problem. The property manager switched slides. We can consider adding a pre-legal phone call, he said. Cautious. Like he was offering a fragile vase. And drought policy. The landscaper neighbor said, write it down. Allow for seasonal variance. Allow shade-tolerant blends. Allow partial regrowth windows longer than 2 weeks. Karen's mouth thinned. Our standards prioritize uniformity. Uniformity under a live oak is a fairy tale. The landscaper said, Sorry. I exhaled and met Karen's eyes. I get that you want nice lawns. We all do. But a perfect lawn under this oak would require resodding every season and a sprinkler system that breaks the county rules. That's not beauty. That's plastic. Karen looked away first. I ain't mean to score a point. I just wanted truth on the table. The board president scribbled notes. Possible amendments, he said. Drought allowances. Human contact before legal. Clarify mailbox standards so mildew and heavy shade isn't treated like vandalism. Karen whispered to the property manager. He nodded and added a slide with the words, proposed revision. The room tense. Fidgety, loosened an inch. When the meeting ended, Karen approached me in the hallway. Her expression was complicated. Look, she said. No one wanted you in jail. Maybe not. I said. But it happened. She shifted from foot to foot. We have to keep standards. I know. I said. But standards aren't weapons. Her mouth parted like she wanted to argue. Then she sighed. The management company pushed legal faster than we realized. That's not comfort. I said, trying to keep my voice gentle. It's an explanation. An explanation that needs to turn into change. She nodded. We're working on it. Good. I said. Because if the choice is between perfect lawns and humiliating your neighbors, I pick my neighbors. That night, after dishes and homework, I sat at the kitchen table and flipped through my binder. Photo after photo, the lawn pre-drought. The lawn during. The mailbox before and after. The garage door fixed. If you looked closely, you could see our lives around the edges, the chalk drawings near the porch, the Halloween pegs in the flower bed. The welcome mat faded from years of feet. That's what they call character, not the color swatch of a shutter. My daughter came downstairs in socks, slid into a chair, and stole a cookie. Do you ever wish we didn't have an HOA? She asked. Sometimes, I said. But sometimes they're useful. Speeding, broken streetlights, pool safety. Feels like they turned into the fashion police, she said, rolling her eyes. But for grass, yeah. I chuckled. Grass couture. She smiled. I like our yard better now anyway. It's not perfect, but it's ours. It's ours. I echoed. 2 weeks later, the board officially adopted a set of changes. They posted them on the community website with bullet points in bold. In times of municipal watering restrictions, lawns will not be required to meet uniformity standards. Homeowners must show good faith effort seeding, trimming, debris removal. Mailbox cleanliness violations will allow a 10-day grace period with simple corrective action. Before any legal escalation, the property manager must attempt a phone call or in-person knock. Documented. I read the post twice. My hands shook a little, like I'd just run a race. Then I saw the last line. In cases of alleged non-compliance after 30 days, the board may consider extended windows with proof of continued effort. It wasn't poetry, but it was better than we dictate results. At the next monthly meeting, they also approved a landscaping fairness walk. 2 board members, 1 property manager, and 2 volunteers, randomly selected homeowners, would walk the neighborhood once a quarter. Not to nitpick, but to spot patterns. Is the shade under certain trees always thin? Are some mailbox areas mildew, magnets? The point was to treat the neighborhood like a neighborhood, not a showroom. Karen, surprise, volunteered to be on the walk. I did too. Let's learn together. I said. The Saturday of the walk. We met at the clubhouse. Clipboard for her. Notebook for me. The landscaper neighbor came along with a cap and sunglasses. The property manager brought a camera, but didn't photograph anything unless a homeowner asked for advice. We walked past lawns with 1,000 greens and yellows. Live oaks through patterned shadows that moved like water when the wind stirred. Children's bikes slept in driveways. A woman with a toddler on her hip waved. You, the fairness people, that's us. I said, grinning. We jotted notes. Shade on north side, consider fescue blend. Mailbox row, near creek mildew. After rain, recommend monthly wipe and sealant. Several cargo vans parked daytime for work overnight. Reminder only if repeated. No tickets. No threats. Just observations. It felt, human. At my house. We stopped under my oak. Karen looked up. Eyes traveling the branching limbs. It's beautiful, she said. The admission surprised us both. It's a headache sometimes, I said. But yeah, it's beautiful. She crouched, touched the grass near the roots. Thinner here, she said thoughtfully. Always will be. The landscaper replied. Any lawn book will tell you. Karen nodded, stood, and scribbled shade variants. Okay. When the walk finished, we all had sun on our forearms, and notes that looked more like a plan than a list of crimes. We turned those notes into guidelines, not rules, designed like tiny hammers. The board put them online with photos and, in plain language, what good faith effort looks like. Not legalis. Not threats. Steps. Rake leaves. Trim edges. Seed twice a season if in shade. Clean mailbox with a bit of bleach and water. We'll even supply a free sponge at the clubhouse. They handed out those sponges at the next meeting. People laughed. It was silly. And yet, it mattered. And because I don't want to paint myself as some saint, there were still flare-ups. A guy 2 streets over refused to move his construction trailer for weeks. Karen wrote him up. And he went online and called her every name in the book. Not okay. I messaged him privately. Hey, man, move the trailer. The rest of us are trying to help this place not be a circus. He grumbled. But he moved it. Later he apologized. Progress is messy. That's just how neighborhoods work. One evening, months after my release, I found Karen standing under my oak again. She had her clipboard but wasn't writing. She looked up through the leaves the way people look up at the sky before a storm. I wanted to say something, she said without looking at me. About what happened. I waited. I was wrong, she said. The words came out small. Like marbles. Not about everything. Standards matter. But about you. About how fast we pushed. About acting like the binder knows better than the person standing on the grass. I blinked. Thank you, I said finally. That's not easy to say. She swallowed. No. Then let's use it, I said. Make sure nobody else gets cuffed over grass. She nodded. That's the plan. If I'm being honest, the hardest part wasn't the week inside. It was the after. It was the way people look at you like you're a headline. Not a neighbor. It was the whisper, that's the woman who got arrested. At the grocery store, in the produce aisle. You feel it. At the school pickup loop. You feel it. I wore sunglasses in the yogurt section. That's how silly it got. So, I said my story again. Not the dramatic version. The human version. At the book club. At the bus stop. On Facebook. where my aunt left 40 heart emojis and my cousin wrote a paragraph about overreach. I told them. A judge warned me. I did my best. A notice got lost. A system too rigid did what rigid systems do. And a neighborhood forgot. For a second. That the people who live here are its heart. People can hear that. They can. We're all one lost letter away from trouble we don't deserve. I also, learned a few tricks. Photograph every letter. Sign for certified mail. Check the court docket online every week if you've got an active case. It's annoying. It's not romantic. But it's safer. I shared those tips at the next meeting during community comments. Karen actually handed out a one-page Know Your Process sheet after. If you get a notice, it said, here's who to call. Here's when to expect a response. Here's how to request an extension. It listed human names, not to whom it may concern. That matters. A funny thing happened too. The oak started to look greener. Not because of magic. Because the county lifted the most severe restrictions after a season of normal rain. The shade blend seed took hold where it could. The sunny patches popped with life. The lawn will never be a carpet. It's a quilt, some squares thick, some thin, and I like it that way. It tells the truth about where the sun falls and where the tree drinks. My daughter, bless her, used the story as a speech topic in English class. When rules forget people, she said ain't once by accident, and then corrected herself. I mean aren't, and the class laughed with her. Not at her. Her teacher pulled me aside at pickup. She's brave, she said. She is, I said. And my heart felt bigger than my chest. That weekend, I set a folding chair under the oak and watched the street with a glass of sweet tea. Life returned to normal in tiny ways. The clack of a skateboard. A dog with a bandana, trotting by. A couple arguing softly about whether to grill chicken or burgers. The kind of noises that mean a place is alive. Then, Karen walked over, no clipboard this time. She carried a potted fern. Peace offering, she said. For me, I asked. For your porch, she said. Shade tolerant. I laughed. Genuinely. Thanks. We sat. Two women who'd accidentally turned into symbols. She told me she joined the board because when she moved in, her neighbor left a broken toilet on the lawn for a week and no one did anything. I thought, there should be rules, she said. But I turned into a rule. Didn't I sometimes? I said gently, but not today. She sighed. I'm trying. I see that. You might be wondering about the attorney. The glossy shoes. The we dictate results. Denise says there's always going to be lawyers who act like the hammer. Because that's what they're paid to do. But communities, she said, can decide when to call the hammer. We changed that part. We said, we don't call the hammer unless the nails refuse every other hand. The board even started a Fix-It Saturday. Volunteers with tool belts and know-how go around helping folks knock out small violations. For free, paint a mailbox, trim a hedge, fix a fence slat. I signed up. Karen signed up. We wore matching neon vests that made us look like traffic cones. We laughed anyway. The first Saturday, we cleaned 4 mailboxes, rewired 1 porch light, and trimmed the overgrown bougainvillea that kept scratching passing pets. People baked cookies. Somebody brought a cooler of lemonade. Lawns looked better. Hearts did too. Look, I don't want to romanticize. Some HOAs don't care about hearts. Some are run by tiny tyrants who love the sound of a gavel and the smell of fresh finds. Maybe yours is like that. If it is, I'm sorry. And I'm gonna tell you what I tell anyone who messages me now. Document. Show up. Speak calm. Bring neighbors. And when possible, run for the board. Change the binder from inside. But if you're lucky, maybe your Karen has a soft spot she forgot about. Maybe your oak can teach your committee about shade and patience. Maybe the word compliance can be replaced with care. I keep the binder on a shelf with cookbooks now. Every once in a while, I take it down to remind myself how close we came to forgetting our own humanity. Right between apple pie secrets and Sunday suppers, there's a tab labeled Neighbors. That's where the real story belongs. A year later, yes. A whole year, the neighborhood looked different in ways a drone photo can't capture. Kids set up lemonade stands at the corner near the stop sign without getting a temporary sales violation. Mr. Hunt painted his shutters a shade of blue that the old guideline would have called too cheerful. But the new guideline calls within range. Mrs. Alvarez planted marigolds that blaze like tiny suns. And no one complained that they weren't subdued. We added a little free library near the playground. And because we're not dumb, we put it on an approved post and checked the setbacks. The board actually helped. One evening, the board hosted a Meet the Oaks walk with an arborist. We strolled at sunset while the arborist talked about root zones and leaf drop and why cypress mulch is better under live oaks than rock. Kids picked up acorns like treasure. The arborist talked about thinning the canopy carefully, not too much, or the tree gets stressed, and the word stressed made me snort. Trays get stressed. I whispered to Karen. So do neighbors. She smirked. We're all just trying to photosynthesize. At the end of the walk, the arborist touched my oak and said, "This one's a grandparent. Treat it good. It'll treat you good." I put my hand on the bark and felt the faint, steady life thrumming under the rough surface. It felt like forgiveness. Denise made me frame the court order, vacating the contempt. "Hang it where you can see it," she said. "So you remember that systems can be corrected." I hung it in the laundry room above the basket of mismatched socks. Felt appropriate. People ask me sometimes, "Would you move?" After all that, it's tempting to say yes, because conflict leaves a bitter aftertaste. But leaving means letting the worst day make your biggest decision. I've learned not to do that. I stay because my daughter knows the cracks in the sidewalk she likes to hop over. I stay because the school crossing guard knows my name. I stay because this oak and I are stubborn. We don't scare easy. And yeah, I stay because, in a weird twist, I believe in HOAs when they're done right. Not the kind that count grass blades with a magnifying glass. The kind that get the streetlight fixed faster than the city does. The kind that helps a widow fix a fence after a storm. The kind that sends a casserole when someone's sick. You can call that community standards if you want. I call it being decent. I don't know what your HOA is like. Maybe it's lovely. Maybe it's a dentist's waiting room with a gavel. Maybe you've got a Karen who's learning. Maybe you've got one who thinks the binder is scripture. Either way, here's my advice. For what it's worth, show up before you blow up. Show up to the meetings. Show up to the walks. Show up to the Fix-It Saturdays. If your board won't listen, replace them. If your neighbors knock on their door and listen back. Start with bushes and mailboxes. Sure. But end with people. My daughter's taller now. She started driving safely. Thank you very much. And the first time she passed a patrol car, She squeezed the wheel so tight, her knuckles went white. "You okay?" I asked. "Yeah," she said. "Just memories." I reached over and tapped the steering wheel. "You got this." She did. We both did. Because the truth is, the scariest part of all of it wasn't the uniform or the cuffs or the cement bench. It was the feeling that your life can be shrunk to a line on a form and a rule in a binder. The antidote is to be too human to fit in a line. So, hey you, watching this, listening, what would you do if your HOA said your grass wasn't green enough? If they sent letters like confetti and threatened court like it's a routine errand? Would you pay the fine and swallow the anger? Would you rip out your yard and lay plastic perfection? Or would you knock on your neighbor's door, take a breath, and say, "Let's fix this like people"? Anyone else had a HOA do this to you? Drop your story in the comments. Tell me, tell all of us, what happened. Did they measure your grass? Did they ticket your mailbox? Did they call a lawyer before they called you? And if you beat it, if you found a way to turn "we dictate results" into "we remember neighbors please." Share the how. We're listening. Okay. But what about the rules someone always asks? We bought here because of the rules. I get it. Rules are like guardrails, you don't notice them until you smack one. They keep the guy 2 streets over from opening a chop shop in his carport. They keep fireworks from exploding under your bedroom window at 2 in the morning. They keep the pool from becoming a free-for-all. I'm not anti-guardrail. I'm anti-forgetting that guardrails are supposed to protect people, not fling them off a cliff. Think about it this way. A neighborhood is a potluck, not a catered banquet. If one person brings an absurd casserole covered in red dye, you gently suggest, next time maybe bring, something else. You don't call the sheriff. Unless the casserole is on fire. Then yes, call everyone. We built a little rule of thumb list. Not a rule. Just a, guide, and we hung it on the clubhouse corkboard. If it's safety, fix it fast. If it's aesthetics talk, first. Document second. Escalate last. If nature is the problem, work with nature, not against it. If the solution costs more than a mortgage payment, look for another solution. If you wouldn't say it to your grandmother, don't put it in a letter. People love that list. They took pictures. They posted it on Facebook with heart emojis. Even Karen smiled at it. And once, I swear she laughed. Like full body, head tilted laughter. Progress. One more thing, we changed grace. Not the church kind, though we got some faithful folks here. But the kind that lets a neighbor's trash can sit out until dusk because their shift went long. The kind that lets holiday lights stay up till mid-January because sometimes joy is heavy to take down. The kind that when you see a violation you ask, "Are you okay?" before you ask, "Why isn't your hedge exactly 6 inches?" That kind. During hurricane season, we suspended aesthetic enforcement entirely. Not because we're saints. Because storms don't care about your soft taupe paint chips. People boarded up windows and helped each other. The board sent out a simple, decent email. Your safety first. Debris can wait. We'll do a neighborhood cleanup day next Saturday. We did. It was muddy and loud and perfect. You might be tired of hearing about grass. Honestly, me too. But this isn't about grass. It's about power, who has it, how they use it, and whether they remember the faces on the other side of the letterhead. A clipboard is power. A binder is power. A cord is power. A tree, even, kinda is too. And each of us holds a little bit as neighbors, the power to knock, to smile, to assume the best first. I keep a photo on my fridge now. Not my mugshot, no thanks, a different one. It's a picture of my daughter and me under the oak at dusk. The lawn is half in shadow, half in gold. We're laughing about something dumb. The way laughter takes your breath and gives it back better. In the background, you can see Karen walking her dog, waving. The photo's not perfect. The composition's off. A trash bin peeks into the corner. A pair of sneakers sits on the porch steps. It's the kind of picture the old guideline might have called cluttered. I call it home. Folks ask how to start fixing a tough HOA. Here's what worked for us. Ain't a blueprint. Just our messy list. Show up in numbers. With calm voices and specific asks. Change drought policy. Not, you're all tyrants. Collect stories. People shrug alone. They speak together. Offer solutions. Shade mix seed recommendations. Mailbox cleaning day. Fix it Saturday. Put humans on every step. Call before you threaten. Knock before you file. Elect board members who know how to say, we were wrong. It's rare, but it's the key. Set a culture. If your board meetings feel like a courtroom, you need more cookies and fewer glares. Will this work everywhere? I ain't sorry. I'm not naive. Some HOAs are fortresses. Some management companies treat fines like a business plan. But even there, neighbors standing together can move the needle. And sometimes, a new election flips the script. So, here we are. A mailbox scrubbed. A garage door smoothed. A lawn that tells the truth about shade. A binder rewritten not because the weather changed, but because we decided being decent mattered more than being uniform. If you're dealing with a HOA that lost the plot, I see you. If you've been humiliated by a letter, fined for a fern, or threatened with court for a lawn that can't outmuscle a 100-year-old oak, I hear you. Drop your story below. Tell me what happened. What you tried. What worked. What didn't. Tell me how your Karen acted. And whether she learned. Tell me what your neighbors did when your mailbox turned green with mildew. Because real rivers run under shade and sometimes the mailbox does too. What would you do here? Would you fight? Would you run for the board? Would you knock on Karen's door with a sponge and say, let me help clean that mailbox so you can stop writing letters about mine? Anyone else had a HOA do this to you? Let's talk. Let's make some noise. Let's make these places livable, beautiful. Yes. But the kind of beautiful that comes from people looking out for each other. Not from binders, pretending grass can't be brown in August.